I started my entrepreneurial journey back when I was in college, but I had to make sacrifices too. I went to the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, where the big house, the football stadium there, is the biggest in the country, I think. And I'm a football guy. I played football throughout high school. I love watching football. I went to one quarter of one game throughout my entire college time. The reason being because I was working on Saturdays, game days. I used to work at weddings. Indian people would get married on Saturdays, and I was working at those weddings from morning until night. And on Fridays, I was hosting my own events. I used to be a party promoter, so I used to host parties on Fridays. Now, I didn't drink. I wasn't into the party scene. To me, that was the way that I could make money. That was the only opportunity for me during the time that I saw, because that's just what I was involved in, because I was involved in that DJ and entertainment space. And so that's how I got started. So Fridays I was working, Saturdays I was working, Sundays I was trying to figure out how I'd be working for the next week, and then between classes I was working. So it was fun because I was doing this with friends and people that I enjoyed spending time with, but it was also sacrifice in the sense that I didn't get to do what a lot of college kids were doing. Most people in college go to college to have fun. They're blowing their money, they're having a lot of fun doing all these crazy things. I was there trying to figure out how I'm gonna be able to fund my life, how I'm gonna be able to fund my investments, because I started learning about financial education. Now, I was definitely not the smartest person when I was in college. I didn't have all that financial education when I started. It took me a lot of mistakes, a lot of experiences, but you gotta go through that time of sacrifice. And one of the things I also had to sacrifice during that time was sleep. I wasn't sleeping that much. Now, guess what? Today, I'm sleeping a whole lot more. My perception and my thoughts around this concept of sleep have changed a lot. Back then, I used to talk about how sleep is for the weak. I'll sleep when I'm dead. I used to talk about all these things because, well, I was also really young. When you're 19 years old, 4 hours of sleep is fine. Now, it's very different. Now, I'm getting a lot more sleep. Now, I'm valuing the importance of sleep, but I had to go through that sacrifice at that time. And so, what you gotta understand is there are waves of sacrifice. There are waves of priorities, and you gotta figure out what is important for you and make allocations based off of that. And the things that you can allocate are your time and your money. Same thing with my business, Briefs Media. As we're launching and growing Briefs Media, as I'm launching and investing my money into different places, one of the places where I wasn't throwing money was my own car. Look, I've made pretty decent money over the last number of years. I've been very fortunate to make good money. But one of the things that was very important to me was securing a strong financial foundation, securing a strong level of investments, of wealth, because that was something that I never learned. That was something that I was never exposed to growing up. But I wanted to have that for myself going forward. So I get it, I went kind of extreme on this, but I refused to spend money even as I was making good money. Even after I started making 6 figures, 7 figures, I was continually investing my money aggressively into my own company, Briefs Media, into buying rental properties, into the stock market, into my speculative investments, into buying physical gold, because that was what was important to me first. I didn't need that fancy car. Those things were not important to me because I wanted this more than I wanted the car. And it was kind of funny. When I would go out to speak places, I would go out and start talking to people who knew who I was because I was getting invited to speak. People would ask me things like, oh, so do you drive a Ferrari? Do you have this? Do you have that? And I was like, no, I drive a beat down Toyota. And the other funny thing is, people would assume that I'm wearing very expensive clothes, because people just assume that because this guy Jaspreet has these followers on YouTube, that this guy must be buying the most expensive stuff, that this guy must be wearing a $10,000 watch, he must be wearing these expensive suits. And no, I'm not. This is a pretty expensive watch. This is a Shinola, shout out Detroit watch. This is, I think, $600 or $700. As of now, the most expensive watch that I own. My clothes, not that expensive. My suits, not that expensive. I got a guy out here in Detroit, I get a 3-piece suit for $200 to $300. So, you gotta figure out what's priority. Now, I'm not against spending money. I want you to also understand this. I am not against spending money. I'm not against buying nice things. I'm not against having nice things. But you gotta figure out what you prioritize. I have definitely spent my money on my fair share of nice things. I have spent money on my fair share of travel, nice Airbnbs, nice travel experiences. That costs money. But you gotta figure out what you prioritize and not just spend money on things that, well, are not worth it to you. And that also includes your time. Because you see a lot of people in today's day and age talking about how I want this, I want to be a millionaire, I want to be successful, I want to be financially free, but I have nothing saved in the bank, or I have very little saved in the bank, or I have all this credit card debt, I have the Gucci, I have the AirPods, I have all this other stuff. People are spending money on all this stuff, talking about how I want to be rich, but all you're doing is making everybody else rich. If your money comes into your bank account You pay your taxes. Then you take this money. You go to Gucci. You go to Apple. You go to Amazon. And you go spend all this money. What you're doing is you're giving all that money to everybody else. The money doesn't stay in your account. And I know I'm getting more on the financial side of things, but if you want to have more of the nice things, well, you got to take that money and keep it in your bank account. That way your money can grow. You got to invest this money in a place where your money can grow. That way now you can use your money that your money is making and use that money to buy the nice things. That way you don't have to use your hard-earned money to buy the nice things. You can use the money that your money made to buy the nice things, but that requires a sacrifice of not having the nice things today. I don't care if you want a Rolex. I like Rolexes. I don't care if you want to have a Rolls Royce. I like Rolls Royces. I don't care if you want to have and buy these expensive things. I just want you to be able to afford it first. And that means making the sacrifice when the sacrifice needs to be made so you can have more of the nice things in the future. There are so many people talking about how it is hard. Inflation has made things harder. How do you expect somebody to start? It's not going to get easier 5 years from now. It's not going to get easier 10 years from now. It's not going to get easier 20 years from now. But that time is going to go. So now the question is, when you're looking back at your life 10 years from now, 20 years from now, what are you going to wish that you did? Are you going to want to make that sacrifice 10 years from now? Or will you be happy 10 years from now that you've already made that sacrifice and you can look back and laugh at all the things that you had to do to live that much better financial life 10 years in the future? And this is the question you got to ask yourself, but it requires you to, number one, decide what you want. Not just talk about it, but really decide. Think about it. Spend 5 minutes thinking about what is important to you. Maybe it takes you 5 days to think about it. Once you decide, write them down and prioritize them. And then go out and get it. I don't want you to just be a workaholic. I don't want you to just sit there and sacrifice your whole life for your work. I want you to figure out what is important to you and do more of that. If you want to spend more time with your family, but you can't because of your work, then you got to figure out how you can get more money so you don't have to keep working there. Or figure out how you can get a new career change. Or figure out how you can do something else. That way you have more time with your family. It's just a matter of priorities. Nothing is wrong or right, but you got to figure out what's right for you. And then when you don't get what you want, don't complain about the things that you didn't prioritize. Because the problem is there are a lot of people that are prioritizing buying all the fancy stuff, the BMWs, the Rolexes, the vacations, and then they complain about the things they don't get. And the reason why is because you're prioritizing the wrong things. And so now, when you prioritize the right things, you're going to get the things that you're prioritizing. And then, well, you're not going to want to complain about the other things because you know what you prioritize. It's honestly just being honest with yourself. And this requires you to take that discipline, to make the sacrifice, to figure out what it is that you actually want. Did you find this video helpful? If you did, please let me know in the comments. I know this was a little bit of a different type of video, but there's a lot of things happening in the world right now where you're seeing a lot of people complaining about what they don't have, but not realizing what they're actually doing with their life. And I think this is what is very important for us to understand, that way we can take control of our lives and not complain about what we're getting, because at the end of the day, we get what we're prioritizing. If you enjoyed this clip and you want to continue your financial education journey, I have another video that I think you'll love. All you got to do is click that button right over there. And for those of you who want to stay up to date on the top finance and business news, you can join Market Briefs, my free financial newsletter, by clicking that button below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.